I saw, well, Mike was there as well, saw Bethany on Saturday. Can I just acknowledge, Bethany, what a fantastic job you did personally, and what a very moving and humbling occasion it was. So thank you very much for, inviting me to be part of it, but also I just thought it was an incredibly fantastic one. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So kia ora, ko Bethany taku ingoa. My name is Bethany Baker from the Styx Living Laboratory Trust, and I'm going to be presenting today alongside Jackie Howard. So I'm going to provide a bit of information about our history and who we are, and then Jackie will go into the details of our submission. So we'll just flick to the next slide. So the Styx Living Laboratory Trust was created out of the Christchurch City Council's Styx Vision 2000 to 2040 document. So in that document, it described 5 key visions, and they were creating a viable spring-fed river ecosystem, a source-to-sea experience, a living laboratory, and the Styx is the place to be, and partnerships. So I'll just briefly expand on each of those, but our main focus is as a living laboratory. So we were brought up with the intention of creating a space for learning and research in the Pūhara Kikinui. So for a viable river ecosystem, we want the Pūhara Kikinui to be viable and healthy and available for future generations to use and enjoy. In terms of the source-to-sea experience, we wanted people to be able to walk all the way from the start, springs, all the way out to Brooklands Lagoon. So we want that to be an area where people are able to bike and walk all the way from the start at the source all the way out to the sea. The fourth Christchurch City Council vision was the Styx is the place to be. So that's about getting people out into the Pūhara Kikinui and enjoying the recreational values, the ecology, the drainage. There's a number of important cultural sites. So it's just sort of about getting people out into the catchment. Not many people have heard about the Styx, and we want to make people more aware of it. And also partnerships, so working together with landowners and other key community groups. So the other 4 visions, but our primary focus is a living laboratory for learning and research. So we'll just flick to the next slide. Yeah. So we were established in 2002. So we just celebrated our 20th birthday 2 days ago. So that's pretty exciting for us. And as a trust, we work through MOUs. So we have a number of key MOUs at the moment with Christchurch City Council, Environment Canterbury, Landcare Research, NIWA, Willowbank Wildlife Reserve, and Lincoln University. So as a trust, we do multiple different activities, and some of those is funding some are scholars and internships, and they do research in the Pūhara Kikinui. And also we do a range of volunteer activities. So that's water quality. We've got one of the longest running data sets in Christchurch. It's been running for about 13 years now. We do bird monitoring, ecosystem restorations, that's forest monitoring. We support pest control, and we've also recently started up an environmental advocacy program. So as a trust, we function through a board of trustees, and we're supported by portfolios. And those portfolios are key individuals which may have a particular interest in a certain area. For instance, communications. So we have a volunteer who champions communications for the trust. And those portfolios spread across 10 different areas, and that's how we function as a trust. Yeah. And we'll just go over to the next page. I'll just hand over to Jackie, who's going to go into a bit of the final details about our submission.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bethany. As Bethany said, my name is Jackie Howard. I'm the community coordinator for the trust, and I'm funded through our MFE funding, which is for the next 5 years of $4.12 million to achieve these visions of the City Council plan. Some of our general comments on the draft annual plan involve the ones listed here, and as trust, we generally support the entire draft annual plan, and in particular, we support the council's intention to use targeted rates to fund stormwater and flood protection. So this allows us to monitor stormwater runoff and flooding effects all of the waterways in Christchurch, particularly the Puhata-Kikanui and its main tributaries, which have been historically prone to flooding and stormwater contamination during significant rainfall events. And this will become more prevalent with the increased development planned for the catchment area, as well as future climate change effects. We also support the council's funding of the major cycleway connection from the Styx Mill Overbridge to the Northern Boulevard. And increasing cycleway connections throughout the Puhata-Kikanui catchment will aid in the future completion of the Source to Sea walkway, as mentioned in the 2000 to 2040 vision. And we also support the flood protection investment in the Puhata-Kikanui catchment, including the Southwest Highstead Wetland, Higgins Basin, and Puhata-Kikanui Styx Stream project, as work in this area will greatly aid in the reduction of stormwater runoff into the Puhata-Kikanui and its tributaries during flooding events. And lastly, we generally support the allocation of the $43,000 to the Styx River Puhata-Kikanui Regional Parks Restoration Development. And we recommend that the $8,000 originally allocated for this financial year not be deferred to the following financial year. Next slide, please. So in continuing with those recommendations, so the first one is that council continues its community partnerships funding to trusts like our own. Support from the council allows our trust to accomplish many things that would not otherwise be possible in terms of land acquisition and leasing our field center. And as our trust is on limited funding from either the Ministry for Environment and other grants and funding sources, there's a high uncertainty about the ongoing funding of the lease for the field center while we work to accomplish the other visions for the Styx. And a bit more on that funding. So our funding covers very specific and limited items as to what we can actually purchase and acquire with those funds. For example, trees, staffing, vehicles, consumable things, etc. And that funding doesn't include our BAU monitoring programs or the field center lease as they are already council projects. Council benefits from its partnership with the trust, from our ability to also get support from central government and our community-led environmental management, which in general leads to overall reduced costs for the council as well. The next point for recommendations is that the Source to Sea walkway is kept in the council's plan and brought forward to its originally scheduled layout for the 2022 to 23 financial year, commencing July 1st, 2022. And our viewpoint is that the trust is working with landowners to develop the appropriate riparian margins to accomplish this vision, but there are some properties that need to be purchased in order to finish these walkway connections. And completing the Source to Sea walkway will be the first of its kind in New Zealand, creating a substantial natural habitat corridor for endemic bird, fish, and invertebrate populations, and also adding a significant quality of life amenity for the people of Christchurch. And there is funding through council to accomplish this. It's just in other areas right now and needs to be reallocated. And we would like to see that done sooner rather than later, as property rates will only increase in the future. And this is really important for protecting the waterway corridor. The Styx Living Laboratory, including our field center, is actually a council initiative that the trust has been actioning for the past 20 years, and that the 75 Lower Styx Road property, which is our field center, was purchased by council for the purpose of that field center. And our last suggestion would be to where funding could or should be reduced or pushed out to future years. Includes mainly the Otakaro Avon River Corridor program, So major expenditures for this program aren't slated to go into effect until the end of the 22-23 financial year. Therefore, pushing this funding into the financial following year would have little to no effect on this project. And that's my final recommendation. If we can move to the next slide. And as I was talking before about the source to sea linkages and Bethany as well, currently you can almost go all the way from the very source down in the bottom left to the exit of the Puarakikinui up in Brooklands Lagoon. There are two sections, one in the Harewood area and one up close to the field center behind Willowbank Wildlife Reserve. It's about 6 kilometers where the source to sea linkage is not complete. But hopefully with land acquisition in the future, hopefully with help from council with the funding, we can complete that source to sea linkage. I think that's it. Bethany, do you have anything to add?
Look, thank you very much. You've just timed that, I think, very perfectly to the 10 minutes allocated. So thank you both very much for that. I'm sure that there's something deliberate about inviting me to the opening of the Christine Herema Field Centre on Saturday and then being the first submission on the Monday. But look, thank you so much. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for focusing your submission on the benefit of the partnership approach. It's been very appreciated. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to the Opawaho Heathcote River Network.